So to continue our conversation a little bit more about life impact, I'm also going to talk about what are some potential impacts during interactions with law enforcement. So during less routine interactions, potentially like those with law enforcement, they can also impact the support and understanding that those with communication disorders need and receive. For example, research from 2016 outlined the importance of training officers to be aware of the various ways to differentiate and address the medical conditions of a traumatic brain injury, or a TBI, versus alcohol intoxication. There are many communication differences that may impact the way in which an individual speaks or communicates that require listeners to be empathetic and aware of their communication partner. Especially in situations that may acutely impact an individual's emotional status, positive communication skills are really critical in mitigating poor outcomes. So our speaker, Jordan, following this slide, will discuss this in relation to his experience with apraxia of speech.
Because people with speech disorders are often mistreated by law enforcement. And this is unfortunately true. And frankly, it sucks. And that's why I wanted to make this video. And I also wanted to talk about some misconceptions and misassumptions people can have about people with speech disorders, not only law enforcement, but also other people as well in the person's day-to-day life. People can often be under the assumption that the person is either drunk or high, aka under the influence. And parents, if your kids just heard that, cover their ears. That's a late warning. I'm sorry, but I don't know. It's true. And it's something that unfortunately happens. And this can also be seen, particularly with law enforcement, is when a driver is being pulled over and a person with a speech disorder is in the car. That is an anxious situation. That's like, oh no, I'm getting pulled over. I might have to pay money. Nobody likes paying money, people. But these people have the higher increase in having speech difficulties because they're under stress. And they're going to most likely have some speech difficulties also, even if they weren't talking with a police officer. So this isn't very specific to this situation, but it also happens in the person's day-to-day life when they get stressed or when they get anxious, and just in their everyday to-day life, even if they're not stressed or anxious. I just wanted to clarify that.
So now we are going to be talking about the importance of awareness. So awareness of communication disorders is critical for fostering the understanding that communication is valuable in all of its forms. It is also vital for creating urgency about the importance of providing support, making resources available to those who are impacted. As you can see here with the top statistic, at least 20% of US adults at some point in their lives have a significant problem with hearing, balance, taste, smell, voice, speech, or language. With that in mind, those with communication disorders may experience adverse outcomes such as bullying, social anxiety, and employment difficulties. Therefore, learning about the impact of those with communication disorders can lead to increased support and available resources at a societal level.
So our goal in highlighting these three speakers in this overall presentation is not to create an encompassing definition of communication disorders, but rather to demonstrate the human side of the disorder. So alongside the disorder is an individual whose ability and decision to communicate in the way in which they do so is valuable and deserves respect. It is our role to create and provide resources that enable others to communicate in ways that work best for them. So, as people, we understand the role that communication plays in our own lives. And when it's impacted by a multitude of other factors, it can impact our outcomes and how we navigate the world. So, as stated by the AAC community at Temple University, every person has a right to express our ideas, and we all have a right to know the ideas of others. So, language, speech sounds, feeding and swallowing, literacy, voice, cognitive communication, fluency, and social communication differences can always play a role in how someone communicates and is understood by others safely. We hope this presentation allowed you some time to reflect on the role that communication plays in your own life.
Now that we are wrapping up this presentation, we just wanted to provide you all with some resources to utilize moving forward. These are attached for you to download as a PDF copy. The first handout lists the organization and the website link to look into that. The second copies provide a description of the organization and how they support those with communication disorders. These are just a few of the many resources to help those with communication disorders. Here are our references from the presentation, and thank you for your time.